Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, nieces and nephews, to another episode of Too Good to Be Drew. I'm your host, Drew Davis, certified life and performance coach. And it's great to have you back again because we'll be continuing this episode where we left off on the last one, where we talked about our Christ in Youth camp that I attended last week and spent about 5 or 6 days with other high schools and young men and women who wanted to further their relationship with Christ. But as this episode airs, I wanted to give a big shout out, man. I'm not too much in the numbers and goal setting when it comes to things that might not be, what's the word to say? That, setting a goal for some things numerically that have a lot of chance for variance. And I didn't want to do that with this podcast, but as you listen to this episode, we have passed 1,000 downloads for people that are listening to this podcast in about 3.5 week span. So that's something I don't take lightly. I know there are people listening in other countries. Shout out to my people in the UK, in Colombia, a couple other ones I can't think of on the top of my head, but definitely major shout out to the people that are listening around the world. And then also the people that are here in the United States, supporting me, liking, rating, subscribing, passing this on to a friend, reposting, posting. I definitely greatly appreciate you guys. So if you are listening to this podcast and you are new, please go on to Apple Podcast or Spotify, give it a 5-star rating, write a review. It'll help this podcast get out to the people that it needs to reach, and it'll help us climb up the charts as we continue to gain a following and just continue to help people and bring value to this space. So once again, thank you guys for helping me and giving me so much love, support, guidance, and any of the other awesome and grateful words that I can throw in there. I'm grateful for you, and I hope we continue to build this community and help this show continue to reach new heights. If you're just jumping in on this episode, your best bet is to go back to the previous episode where we talk about Christ in Youth Camp Day 1, where I just talk about the process of getting into it and kind of what our days look like. You don't necessarily need that episode to be able to make sense of this one, but I hope you go back and listen to it, and I hope it provides some value to you. I discussed the last episode in length, and we just spent some time talking about what that experience was like with my 10th grade boys and with other 9th through 12th grade students. We talked about games we played, but here we're going to talk about how we connected more and a lot of the things that I took away and that I really liked from the camp that I'm going to apply to my life and also to my day. And so this camp was built and it's been going on for some time now. It was my first experience with it. But through this camp, we had some great speakers and presenters. They had some great games and things that they were doing for day to day. And it was also just good to see them just be able to relax and catch them doing things that they like doing, whether that was kicking a soccer ball, throwing a football, drawing some henna, whether that was over here joking around and playing around with many of our young boys do at that age. But it was great to see both sides of them, to see them in a faith-based aspect, and then also to see them as the young men and women that they are, who are still finding themselves, still enjoying life, still carving out their friend group. But you can also see those relationships that they've already built with friends that they've had at camp or people that they just met at camp. And one of the things that I really liked about just the service and how we did everything, we'd have breakfast in the morning, and then there would be a hour or hour and a half service. There was a lot of worship. There were some very good speakers. There were a lot of games being played, a lot of interaction with the crowd to keep them engaged. And we did that both. They had service both in the morning and the evening. And both of those services, the band was great. The worship team was great. And one thing that I noticed about the young men and women of this age group is that when it was time to worship, I looked up at one point in time. They had us sitting in different sections based upon, what day it was. And on the last day, we were right on the floor, right in front of the worship team. And when I looked up and I saw our young students worshiping and singing these church songs and praising the Lord, is I looked up and I didn't see a lot of phones out. I honestly, I want to say that I saw none. I might have saw one or two here or there, but I didn't see a lot of recording and trying to get this down for the gram or for making sure they had this for memories. They were all poured in when they were worshiping. And it's good to see that in a world where I go to concerts a lot. And, right when the artist comes out, you see everybody break out their phone. You see the lights coming on. You look to your left or your right, and it's 45 minutes, an hour into the show. And there's somebody that's been recording the whole thing or streaming it on Facebook Live or whatever it might be. But this was not the case for this age group. this age group, when they were worshiping, they were there 100%. They were present. They were where their feet were. They were enjoying it. And it was also just awesome to see this young group just praise the Lord and to really just give thanks and gratitude for everything they've been giving and to really just reaching out and reaching deep down inside and not care who's looking, but to really just shout all this stuff out and to be free and to not worry about judgment from other people. And it was like that for a lot of people, a lot of students that I saw. And it also helped me relax to do the same thing, to just be 100% all in, to enjoy the time, to enjoy the songs, to enjoy the band, and also to just take time to reflect on my journey with Christ and worship and just enjoy that time that we got to worship, which was a couple times a service. And one thing that CIY did really well is it wasn't just them sitting for an hour and then praise and worship for, 10 or 15 minutes and then listening to somebody else speaking and they were done. They did a good job. The praise and worship team came on the stage 3 to 4 times every service. I would say 2 to 3 times every service. All right, let me not lie. 2 to 3 times every service. And every time that they would come on, they would break with the speaker or before, somebody came out to give a presentation, and you would see it was in a gymnasium. So you would see a sea of people, men and young ladies running down these old wooden bleachers. I remember we had the same bleachers at Montbello High School, just old and wooden, and your butt was hurt by the end of sitting on it for 5 or 10 minutes. But you would see the sea of people getting up from their seat, rushing up to the stage to join in praise and worship. And at first I saw it and I'm like, hold on, are they supposed to do that? Are they able to do that? Like, is somebody going to tell them to slow down or stop? Or mind you, this is my first time at camp. And no, nobody did tell them to slow down or anything like that. But there are some students or kids, young men and women, who have been going there for years and things like that. And I guess that's what the status quo is. Now, with that being said, we did experience a couple injuries at camp, which is not good. One time it was a student coming down the bleachers and rolled her ankle in such a way. Another time it was, somebody playing hacky sack and kind of falling into a hole. And yeah, I think she ended up breaking her tibia or fibia. But she was definitely a trooper the rest of the camp. I got to enjoy some time with her, driving them around, dropping them off in the truck to make her life a little bit easier. And then, we also had a young man who kind of tore a muscle kicking a soccer ball, and he was already coming back from this injury. I think he was 75 or 80% healed. But it's those unfortunate things that you never want to happen at this type of camp. But there are also these young people who, I ain't gonna say they think they're invincible, but I was the same age at one point in time, and I thought I was invincible. But they're having fun, they're relaxing, they're letting their hair down. So I'm just praying for those who experience injuries. I'm pretty sure the young lady who broke her ankle or tibia or fibia is having surgery, I think this week, or goes in for a consultation this week. So I'll just continue to pray over her. And outside of that, there were some other injuries, maybe a sprained knee, a sprained ankle here or there. But it was funny because one night I had to go to the emergency room with one of our students and one of our leaders. And we spent the whole time with her there, and we're making sure she gets checked out and gets X-rays and all other kind of stuff. And one of the things that the emergency room told us, she was like, you guys are like the seventh or eighth, camper to come in here. Like, what are you guys doing at camp? Do we need to call somebody to come down there and check to see what you guys got going on with these young people? And it was just funny because it wasn't just our church, it was other churches as well that were there. So, there are, I can count 4 or 5 injuries within our church group. But looking at everybody, there could have been upwards of, 10, 15, 20 people that were injured in some way, shape, or form. So we'll continue to pray for all those campers and those students. The church setup was great and the service was great. Like I said, worshiping and going into these different aspects of it, keeping the young people engaged. But also it was great because there was different things they set in place even as we broke out into our small groups. And I was with my 10th grade boys in the morning, and then we kind of did more of a group thing or church thing in the evening. But breaking off with my boys in my small group, our 10th grade boys, it was very interesting because we did a couple things, and I had about 18 or 19 young people in my group, and I had 3 other group leaders with me. Shout out Ben and Cody. We crushed it. We did a good job being able to support each other and being able to continue to build that group and chasing down kids when we had to. But we did a good job facilitating, and that's the biggest thing I take away from it. Sometimes it's very difficult to get high school boys to open up a little bit and talk about their personal struggles or problems begin at the beginning of the week. And then by the end of the week, they spent time around you, other people have shared, and they feel more comfortable that other people are going through something similar. And so you end up getting a lot better, um, for lack of better words, you end up getting people that are more open and more vulnerable to share. And I want to say I appreciate all of my 10th grade boys for the things that they shared to the group, to the things that they shared to us in confidence when we had discussions on the side or walking to and from someplace. And we hope those conversations can continue and that trust in the relationship continue to build as well. But one thing I really enjoyed when we broke up into small groups, in order to make it easier for us, because like I said, it's pretty hard to, talk and pull stuff out of people in small groups. And, sometimes you have the same people sharing. But CIY set up a good system where we did these things called Sailor cards. And these Sailor cards, they were had written on front and back. And matter of fact, I got one sitting right here next to me. So I'm gonna just reach over and grab it. I'm not going to bore everybody and read absolutely everything that it says on this card. And each day was different. So this is a day 5 card. And these Sailor cards is pretty much we give these out to the students and we say, hey, spend 5 or 10 minutes with this card, read the questions on there, do the prompts, and we'll kind of reconvene back in 5 or 10 minutes. And I'll just read the top part of this. It says, stop. Can you believe what a gift it is to get to spend time with the creator of the whole universe? It's good to be alive, sitting here right now. What's happening in this moment? Look around you. What do you see? What sounds do you hear? Can you smell anything? What textures do you feel against your skin? And so I really like these cards, and I'll be honest and upfront. Like there's times I really didn't know how to pray or spend time with God, and how people say that and once you first start on your faith journey, people tell you to pray, but sometimes there may or may not be a process to know how to pray. But I think being exposed to other ways to spend time with God, these cards were very good for us because they allowed us to, give them something to go off and do on their own and then to come back and talk about and discuss it. Now, during those first couple of days, they were still a little bit hesitant. We had some people sharing. And then as the week went on, there were more and more people opening up when we did these cards or we got into our group discussion. But I shared with them that, like, I was like, I never had anybody that taught me how to pray. And with me reading this card and answering these questions or having these questions asked to me where it said, what's happening in this moment? Look around you. What do you see? What sounds do you hear? Can you smell anything? What textures do you feel against your skin? And it really allowed me to ground myself, to be present in what was going on around me. And we let the young men spread out around the room. And sometimes I saw students that were outside doing these cards and they would reconvene and come back in. And I just felt like it's a very interesting and creative way to dig deeper with the students and the young adult ministry. There are things that they had on there like breathing exercises, affirmations, a couple things like that that I really enjoyed. And so I took a couple of these Sailor cards with me so I can still go back to them every now and then. So I can develop a better way of spending time with God, of praying, of, being able to hand these to somebody else one day or having a discussion about these when we meet up later this week with our small group and talk about camp. This is one of the biggest things that I think allowed us to dig deeper with our young men, to have deeper conversation, to get them to open up a little bit more, because it wasn't just us driving the conversation. We had some resources and material that helped us further and drive that conversation as well. And so even outside of this, with technology being so big, there was also an app we can use. I think it was called Combos. And pretty much, after we got done with these cards and we kind of opened up a little bit about what the message was for that day from, whoever was delivering it. And this Combos app on the phone, it would say things like, hand the phone to the person that got the least amount of sleep last night. And so we had some fun being able to go around the room and see, who hasn't been to sleep, like who got the most amount of rest. And, dealing with 14 to 18-year-old boys, they stay up, they're playing video games, they're on their phone. There were a lot of guys that were like, I got 2 hours of sleep or 1 hour of sleep. And we even had a student that said he didn't go to sleep at all, but he was also traveling in. So that might have been a reason as well. But it was just a chance for us to dig deeper. They said, hand the phone to the person with the brightest colored shoes, or hand the phone to the person who had the most recent birthday. And so that created some conversation too. And if you know men and guys, we're gonna play, we're gonna clown a little bit. They said, hand the phone to the person that drinks the more energy drinks, the most energy drinks. And you can see all the students are point to one specific person because they know that, hey, this is the person that drinks the most energy drinks. He's had 10 since he's been here. I won't say that our student had 10 energy drinks since he's been there, but he had quite a bit. But everybody knew who that person was. So it was a different layer, and it was us going another layer deeper to learn about our young men. And one of the things that I know the best about being on sports teams is that everybody, not that there's a whole consensus, but there are a lot of people that know things or that aren't really discussed that people, run with. And, with playing in sports, I knew you could say who's the funniest person on the team, who sleeps the most on the team, who's the most angriest person on the team, who's most likely to be late, who's most likely to be early, like all these different types of things. You can come with one or two people who you're like, oh, this is who my vote is for. And so it was
That's
funny watching them go through it in real time, sometimes having somebody accept it, sometimes having somebody deny, deny, deny. But that was part of us digging deeper and going deeper into our discussions and our group time that we got to spend with our young men. And so, even though I was there as a group leader, I always take time to study speakers and messages. And I always try to take away one thing from everybody I come in contact with, even if I don't totally agree with the message or it's over my head or anything like that. And we had some very, very good speakers that spoke to us about faith and were able to weave it and make it relatable to life and things that these young people are going through. One speaker got up and he talked about being an ambassador for Christ. And he talked about, Christian proximity, and about how, sometimes you're around other Christians and they're praising the Lord. And you think just by you being around them that makes you a Christian, but then you leave and you go home and you do all this other stuff. It was very interesting. It was very on point, and it was one of the last presenters to speak to us before we closed out on the last day. And it was really interesting to me. He brought up this point, and like I said, I always try to take things from talks, speeches, Bible verses, songs, movies, shows, whatever it might be. And he brought up the verse Matthew 9:37. And that in that verse, it says, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. So he's saying there's a lot of work out here to be done. There's a lot of things to reap from this life or this job or all these other things, but the amount of people that want to work for it are few and far between. And I really like how he delivered that because it goes into a lot of stuff in our lives. But going back to Christianity and going back to your faith walk, there's a lot to be had from the Bible and from church or from Christianity. But there aren't a lot of people that want to work that way in order to receive those things, to live their life, to order their steps in the name of God and of a higher power. And I used that quote and I posted it earlier this week on IG. And I always try to find material to be able to push out to people. And the more comfortable I get on Instagram, the more I push out Bible verses and things I talked about in church or discussions we had in small groups, but not being afraid to hide that part of being a Christian or just being someone who wants to reach out and help other people find God as well. Our church mission or our church moniker or our church vision and mission statement, I should say, is helping people find and follow Jesus. And I think that is a great, great way to put it because not only do we want you to find him, we want you to know how to follow him. And with that verse, Matthew 9:37, I just think it's an awesome Bible verse for me to put in my tool belt to be able to use. One of my favorite scriptures is Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpens iron. And that goes a lot into sports and competition. And you want to go against the best. So it's going to help you be the best as well. And this last speaker talked about Christian proximity. And he said, don't be one of those people that comes here and they do praise and worship and then they still go off and do their own thing. And what he was doing is he was making a call for, there were people that wanted to be kingdom workers, which are people that are doing the work, boots on the ground, helping people find and follow Jesus. But then he also asked people to be ambassadors, people that wanted to take a baton and run with it. What he was asking for was people that he wanted to push beyond being kingdom workers. The people that he wanted to plant as, young youth pastors or people that feel that there's a calling on their life to be something greater and help push this message and help other people find and follow Jesus and be a beacon of light that other people can find. And I really enjoyed his message because he did really good at it. He had command of the room. The students were locked in. He took a couple minutes to quiet everybody down here and there when they got a little bit restless. But his message, I feel, was well received, and I really feel like a lot of people came away with that being the final talk of the camp as being a very valuable piece of everything that happened in camp and what they were working towards. And there were a lot of people that wanted to step up or that did step up and accept the challenge, and we're going to support those people. We're going to continue to be behind them and give them whatever they need from us to continue on that journey, the support, the affirmation that they need. But it was great to see that this young group is walking by faith, not sight. They are having this big influence on the friends and the people around them. And as they're on their faith journey, that they know they'll slip, they'll fall, they'll stumble here and there, but they have other people to look to confide in, other people to talk to and to get guidance from. And I think that's a lot of what this camp was. It was a camp built to come to have fun, but to also strengthen their relationship with Jesus. And that's what I liked most about the camp. But outside of that, man, the praise and the worship was just awesome. And like I said before in the earlier episode, seeing all the all the students run up to the stage and trample down the bleachers and all that just to get close, I just caught myself enjoying the music. They picked some great songs. They sounded great through this whole thing. I caught myself on my phone constantly, looking up lyrics to a song so I can put it in my Spotify playlist. And I think I put at least 30 or 40 versions of some songs into my Spotify church playlist. So if you guys want that, I'm gonna put that in the show notes as well. But I find myself listening to a lot more praise and worship music, not just on Sunday, not just when I'm going to church or from church, quite often. And I realize, how much that's helped me on a day-to-day basis. I catch myself humming or singing a song and then I put it on. And so in a world where, our music has a lot of cursing in it or just a lot of derogatory stuff, and I still listen to that stuff. I'm not going to sit here and act like I went cold turkey, but I find myself listening to a lot more worship music in certain aspects of everything I do. And so I challenge you guys to reach back into some gospel music, some worship music that you were listening to in church as a young person, or something your mom or your grandma or your dad or your grandpa listened to, and pick out 5 to 10 of your favorite worship and gospel songs, put them in a playlist, and take some time, whether in the morning, on the way to work, before practice, after practice, put these songs on, sing with them, worship a little bit, say a prayer to God, and pray for the people around you, your family, your friends, your teammates. And I hope you'll continue to do that at this point moving forward, because it's had an astronomical effect on me, to the point that I really think I could sing now. I'm lying to y'all. I can't sing, and I make sure my voice is low when I am singing and humming. But I just want to let everybody know that that's probably my favorite time from camp. The amount of church songs that I came away with, the versions, the deeper feeling and closer connection I have with God. And I just want to thank my students, my 10th grade boys, and all the students that came from our church, that shared a word with me or I talked to at some point in time. And I'm looking forward to build a better relationship with you as we move forward. So, as we close out this episode, I just want to continue to challenge everyone to get a deeper relationship with your faith, with God, with Jesus, whoever that might be, and then continue to pull other people along. Don't be afraid to talk about your religion, or, be able to help somebody who's trying to find their way. I don't know everything that there is possibly to have or to know at this point in time either. And I think it's about being a lifelong learner. There's always going to be stuff I can learn. There's always going to be stuff I don't know, but I'm gonna do my best to learn as much as I can. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this part two to this CIY camp that I'm doing. And I hope to get more information to you guys soon. But if you're not involved in with the church or helping out the youth in some way, shape, or form, please, if you have the time, if you have the resource to be able to do so, try to do that, because there are so many young men out here who are looking for mentors, father figures, people to confide in that they might not have at home or in their life. And it plays such a big factor in helping people and young men get on that path to having a great life, to being great husbands, great fathers, great uncles, great brothers. Just seeing that and being able to get that experience with people is going to be able to help them out tremendously. So I hope you enjoy this episode. As always, reach out, go into the podcast, give it 5 stars, a couple more, and we are going to be at 50 ratings, which I really, really appreciate from you guys. So once again, this is Uncle Drew. This is my show, Too Good to Be Drew. Like I said, I'm going to enunciate it a lot more. And I look forward to talking to you guys later. Stay healthy.